So we're here today at TCAF, day 2, and talking to Ryan North, the creator behind Dinosaur Comics, extremely popular webcomic. And before I start asking you questions, did you find it strange that you had somebody come up to you and ask you to draw a dinosaur on their back? Have you had anybody else have any weird requests like that?
Right. It's only the second time I've signed skin. The first time was the upper chest, and both very special times. You're sort of touching someone's body in a way that most people don't touch a stranger's body, and you're writing your name on their body, which is sort of this weird psycho. It's fun. I'll say it's fun.
So can you tell us a little bit Dinosaur Comics? When did you start doing it?
Right. I started in 2003. It's the same 6 pictures every day, so I've been using, that's 7 years now, with the same 6 images, different words. Normally when I describe it, I say it's better than it sounds, because you'd think using the same pictures over and over again would be pretty terrible, but I like it.
What was the inspiration behind it? I mean, before you were doing Dinosaur Comics, what other work were you doing?
I hadn't actually done much comics work. I really wanted to do comics, but I can't draw. And that's kind of a wall in a visual medium, so I was trying to figure out ways I can get around that. And one of the ways I came up with was if I use the same pictures, I don't have to draw them once, and then I could always just keep recycling them, and maybe that would work, I thought. Turns out it worked all right.
And yesterday at the panel you mentioned there's a famous David Lynch comic that uses the same technique, and you weren't familiar with that, but now I guess you probably get this question a million times.
Actually, most people don't know about the strip. It's only in a couple newspapers, local ones in Los Angeles. But yeah, it's called The Angriest Dog in the World, and it's 3 panels. And actually, what's even more so repetitive, had the same first 2 panels all the time and just a different punchline. But yeah, I thought it was this brilliant genius who came up with this one way of doing comics, and then David Lynch, pardon me, David Lynch beat me to it before I was born.
Now, speaking about the fact that you use the same, I guess it allows you freedom to explore material in every single strip that you might be limited if you were actually drawing stuff?
Yeah, I mean, you're never facing a blank sheet of paper, which is nice. And it's nice that they're dinosaurs, so I can talk about stuff that, if I do a comic about racism, there's always this weird subtext where whoever's talking is of a particular race. But when they're dinosaurs, no one has any, like, Triceratops racism. So you can talk about stuff in a direct way that you can't normally do with people, singular.
And you're on the web.
Yep.
Now, obviously, now you have a printed book that people can buy. The web is what made you successful.
I always think the strip would be a really hard sell for paper because, I mean, I recognize it's sort of an aggressive aesthetic, and if you print it in a paper, you'd maybe say 1 in 10 people likes it. That means you're going to get 9 letters to paper being like, hey, this comic sucks, I hate it. But online, you sort of self-select that audience. People who like it will find it, and you'll get only that 1 in 10 who really love it. And it can survive off those awesome people instead of having to survive off everyone.
I noticed on the web that people who read webcomics, there's a much broader spectrum of webcomic readers, and often those people might not traditionally be interested in comics in a printed format, yet they're huge. Like, there's so many webcomics that are so huge in that sort of community, but printed fans have never even read them. Right.
I actually have this big grand theory about how webcomics are saving the medium that's sort of funded on the idea that if you don't like comics, if you're not a comics fan, you're not going to seek them out. So you'll only see comics that come to you, and that's going to be superheroes or Archie comics or newspaper strips. And those are 3 things that are very particular. And if you don't like them, you'd be forgiven for thinking like, oh, maybe I just don't like comics because all the comics I see I don't like. But webcomics, they're small, they're digestible, they're free, they're accessible. And so when your friend sends you a comic saying, hey, you might like this, it's sort of, you can read comics without being a comics fan. And I've gotten emails from people saying, hey, I don't like comics, but I love your strip. And I was like, surprise, you like comics. Comics can be anything. It's a medium, not a genre.
You've been on the web for quite some time now. Could you talk a little bit how you felt that the web comics industry is growing and how the web has changed maybe since you started out?
Yeah, it's a lot easier now to actually become successful faster, which is great. There's a lot of social media sites, people who are looking for something to read. Before you just sort of browse web yourself, now you'll see what's new on Reddit or things like that. And so it's very easy for someone with compelling strips or something interesting to get an audience really quickly, which is fantastic. It sort of lets you hit 0 to 60 a lot more faster than you did, 7 years ago.
Do you do a lot of social media now to help promote, or do you not need to do that anymore?
Whenever people talk about social media promotion, it always seems kind of insincere. Like there's a lot of really sketchy dudes doing stuff with social media. I think it can be used to promote, certainly, but you want to be sincere about it. Like, you have a trust with your readers, and as soon as you start selling them out, you lose that trust. And I think it's very easy to do the wrong thing with social media.
How did you, when you first started out, how did you promote yourself on the web to get an audience? Was it a slow burn?
Yeah, I didn't really do anything to promote myself. I sort of put the site up and said, there, I'm done. And it took about maybe 2 years before there's really any readership to speak of. But if you're doing it for yourself, that's not really a problem. You're getting better as you go. My first 2 years of scripts, I'm not especially happy with 7 years later because, I've gotten better as a writer. I think I've gotten better as a writer. And so it was a good sort of training wheels situation, which was nice. But yeah, if I was starting again, I would actually advertise it. So just assuming it's on the internet, now I'm done.
Now, what about future? I mean, you're bringing out a plushie, which is interesting. And I mean, apart from Dinosaur Comics, what other sort of ideas or plans do you have?
Right. I actually started an advertising network, an online advertising network, out of Dinosaur Comics. I looked around, there wasn't really any good comics ad networks that made sense, that were fair and transparent and stuff. So I made an ad network called Project Wonderful, and that takes up the other half of my day now, running that network and doing that. And it's been great. Like a lot of people use it. It helps a lot of people. I get emails saying, "Hey, Project Wonderful pays my rent," and that's awesome. I'm so happy that's working out for you. So it's I do comics in the morning and computer software in the afternoon, and it's a really great kind of lifestyle.
Last question would be just to maybe talk a little bit about the time travel shirt. How did you come up with that? Paul bought one yesterday. It's a pretty cool T-shirt.
Thank you. Yeah, I put that up, and it again with social networks, went really big overnight. And people were all linking to it. I got a couple emails picking apart the finer details of flight on the shirt and things like that. But it's really good. It's a shirt that if you go back in time, it says, let's say you've gone back in time, that has all this information on how to reconstruct technology and basic physics and things like that. So that if you are stuck in the past, you can bring some of the future with you. And it came out of me worrying that, if I was sent back in time, I could say, wow, if you build a computer, I could show you do some cool things with it, but I can't really build a NAND gate out of rocks and sticks. So I thought if I had more information, maybe I could.
I think the classic, for me, story that involves somebody going back in time and bringing in technology would be Army of Darkness.
Yeah, I should have put Chainsaw Fuel on the list of things to recreate.
Thank you for taking time to talk to us. And if you haven't checked out Dinosaur Comics, I highly suggest that you do. And good luck in the future.
Thank you very much. Cheers.